Hello, my name is Dr. Brian Raid and I'm a naturopathic doctor, and this is a video about some of the limitations of using PCR testing, which is essentially testing for DNA, so DNA testing if you will, when looking for evidence of chronic infections. So when it comes to DNA testing, in my opinion, it can be very helpful in certain regards. We know from studies that have been done that finding evidence of DNA of certain microbes, like say the bacteria that causes Lyme disease, Borrelia burgdorferi, finding that bacteria's DNA in the bloodstream is considered to be it's like a not quite a gold standard diagnostic test, but it's like the second best test for testing for Lyme disease. The best is finding the actual living microbes, the little spirochetes under a microscope using a dark field microscope, but finding evidence of Lyme DNA or Borrelia DNA in the bloodstream is a very strong diagnostic test for Lyme disease as well. And essentially, when it comes to doing tests that look for the evidence of DNA of microbes in question, if the microbes that we're looking for are not supposed to be in the bloodstream, and then or in the body at all, bloodstream or otherwise, and then we find their DNA in the secretions or substances that are made or contained within the body, like urine or saliva or stool or blood, then in my opinion that testing is very valuable, because if we see, oh, there's the DNA of the Lyme bacteria in this person's bloodstream, that's not supposed to be there, then it gives us some strong evidence that there is Lyme bacteria in that person's bloodstream, or that there's Lyme bacteria in that person's body, in their bloodstream, and probably other places as well. On the other hand, if there is DNA testing for microbes that are supposed to be in the body or that are commonly found in the body, especially if the amounts that are found in the body are typically small amounts, then the validity or the value rather of that testing becomes more questionable. So for example, I had a patient recently who did some PCR testing, so DNA testing for the HHV6 virus. And HHV6 is a virus that if it starts to over-replicate in a person's body, especially if that person is already immune compromised due to methylation cycle defects, other chronic infections that are afoot, mold toxicity, what have you, then that HHV6 virus can cause a lot of havoc in the body. It can further disrupt their mitochondrial function. It can create a lot of symptoms. It can cause, stimulate fevers and lymph node swelling and various things like that. And so in certain, when it's overpopulating, it can cause major issues. But a lot of us have that HHV6 virus in our bodies just in low-grade amounts anyways, because in many of us, we encounter that when we're kids. It causes cold or sometimes a certain type of rash to form on the body. We fight it off no problem because our immune systems are nice and healthy as kids, hopefully, and then the virus just kind of goes into dormancy, but there could still be tiny amounts of viral material floating around, just not enough to make us sick. Well, we do PCR testing, we pick up the presence of that viral DNA, and then we see, oh, there's this virus, we found this DNA, oh no, do I have this big HHV6 infection going on? Well, not necessarily, because the PCR testing can amplify DNA in such a way that it might, it can't tell us whether or not there's tons of the virus everywhere or there's just a small trace amount that might be totally benign. So when it comes to PCR/DNA testing, it can be really, really useful, but we have to be just mindful of what's actually being tested for, and is that actually going to be clinically relevant. In, say, that same patient, if they had a marked elevation of their antibodies against the HHV6 virus, particularly IgG antibodies against the HHV6 virus, well, in my clinical opinion, that would be a lot more clinically relevant, because that's telling me, oh, the immune system's having this really built up response to this particular virus, and there's more likelihood or greater likelihood that it's because the virus is actually over-replicating and more likely to be actually causing symptoms. So just yet another nuance when it comes to lab diagnosis related to infections in the body, but I think it's an important topic to think about and talk about, and I just wanted to share those thoughts today. So if there's any questions about this topic or really about anything else, please feel free to post in the comment section below. And if you haven't already subscribed for my mailing list, please do consider subscribing to my mailing list. I send out a newsletter approximately once a week. It has links to all of the social media videos that I post, and then also just announcements about when I'm doing live Q&A sessions. If you sign up for my mailing list, you get access to the first two parts of my Overcoming Chronic Illness course. That's something that you might find to be of value, and then I just share other things that might come up along the way in that mailing list as well. So please consider joining if you haven't already. It was recently brought to my attention that the link in my link tree in the bio of my Instagram account, in case you're watching this on Instagram, was not really that straightforward in terms of how to sign up for the mailing list. So that's been corrected. So if you're interested, please check that out on my bio. And then if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, then I have the link to join the mailing list in the comment or in the description below. So I hope that this information was useful, and I will leave it there for now.